Okay, folks, it's 5:30. We'll call the meeting of the Board of Appeals to order. We do have one more member that we expect, but we can proceed without him at the present time. First of all, a little housekeeping. Gentlemen, those of you who are seated up here with me, were any of you able to go out and look at the properties before us tonight?
No.
Did you speak with anyone regarding the variance requests before us tonight?
No.
Do any of you anticipate not voting on any of the issues?
No.
I will not be voting on item number 1. Okay, regarding the agenda for this meeting, anybody have any notes? As Paul has pointed out, we had one item that is no longer on your agenda, so if you have a good memory and a sharp eye, you may have noticed that we're down to 4. Otherwise, I'm okay with this.
Make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Very good. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda for this evening. All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Now, regarding the minutes from the last meeting, June 17th.
I move we accept them.
All right.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes from the June 17th meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. All right, we're ready to go. I hear someone coming down the hall.
There he is.
There he is.
We are the Schmidts. Shall we
You may.
approach?
You may approach.
And in court.
As soon as this gentleman, is Mr. Halverson, is ready to go.
I'm ready.
We have the Schmidts. You all set?
Yep.
All right.
Thanks.
Come get me over here. Very nice.
What's that?
Very nice shirt.
Yes.
Now you take over.
Okay. So, why don't you present your case as to what you're requesting in terms of
Sure.
variance?
We have actually sort of a two-part application here. I know that the board requires things to be filed on its forms, and we have done that, but there's no separate form for filing appeals from the decisions of the zoning administrator as opposed to variances. So there's kind of two parts to this. But the substance of what we want to do is to widen the north end of our driveway towards the top of the screen there by at least 6 feet to allow the parking of a third vehicle. In essence, that's a good picture in front of where the rightmost of the two doors, the smaller door, is on that picture there. We did submit, thank you, there's a showing kind of what we want to do there. All the widening would be outside of the right-of-way. I think it's about 100 square feet. We'd be adding maybe total to the paved area, if even that, partially replacing a kind of a broken down walkway that runs from the existing driveway around the back, the east side of the house. We did submit the application. It was denied by the zoning administrator based on the way that they read the words garage door and garage opening. I would argue, based on the plain meaning of the words, that the smaller of the two doors is in fact a garage door and a garage opening, and so that as a matter of right, without receiving a variance, we have the right to go up to 2 feet to the east, that is to the right of the smaller of those two doors. Both of those doors lead directly into the garage. To the extent that the board might be inclined to disagree with that interpretation, then I would ask that the board consider this as a request for a variance. And if it's considered as a request for a variance, I would ask for a variance permitting me to build that, what I've depicted as a 6-foot wide, sort of a 2/3 stall up to 9 feet wide, so that it would be the same width as the two existing home driveway stalls, for lack of a better word. Each of those squares is roughly 9 by 9 currently. So currently we are, the regulation says you can be up to 2 feet beyond the edge of the garage door or garage opening. The current driveway goes a foot to the side of the overhead door on each side. from the edge of the current driveway to the rightmost edge, the eastmost edge of the smaller door is about another 4 feet. So if we went 2 feet beyond that, that would be another 6 feet wide from the width of the existing driveway.
Can you touch on the hardship in terms of the, as it relates to the requests?
Sure. So the hardship here is really we have nowhere else to go.
Okay.
This is a corner lot, so we have setbacks from both Stonehenge Road and South Fox Run. We can't go west because that would take us into the setback from Stonehenge Road. I discussed with the administrator the possibility of what about sort of snaking around with 2 90-degree turns and then having the concrete pad in the back being a parking space. That's not permissible. My understanding is the way that they construe requirements for circular drives, you can't do that. You can't have 2 90-degree turns in the driveway to take you around back. Really, there's no other way to add, so it's a 2-car existing garage, 2.5-car existing garage. There's really no other way to add parking, no way at all to add parking that's behind both setback lines. And the only thing I considered, frankly, was what if you rip down the southern part of the house? But even there, I'm not sure you could do it because underneath the eastern part of that, kind of the southern half of the house there, is basement, and I don't believe you can build a garage over a basement, and I don't know that you can. So functionally speaking, this is the only way to add parking to this particular lot because of the double setbacks and the original design of the house, which we did not build.
Is your addition pretty, like what you're requesting for the driveway, pretty consistent with the size of other driveways in the neighborhood?
Yes. In fact, I don't know how much time the board wants to spend on this, but I submitted it's actually smaller than I would say a number of my neighbors.
Right.
I presume these people have gotten variances over the years, allowing them to do things that are either similar or larger. Smaller than if you had if it was a full 3-car garage, as several of our neighbors do have, you'd have a wider driveway anyways. This is kind of a 2.5-car driveway for a 2.5-car garage.
And then the neighbor that would be potentially affected would be the one
Myers?
At 243 would be your neighbor.
Yeah, those are Myers.
Okay.
Yeah, that's John and Jean Meyer.
I mean, there's a lot of shrub covering and so forth.
Yeah, especially during the winter, we can't really see their house.
Okay.
I think we're both kind of in the same position with teenagers at home, and
Okay.
you can see their car. Part of the problem is you see where their son's truck is parked. It's all the way down by the road, and that's what ends up happening with my daughter's Honda. And frankly, I think everybody'd be happier if you got the cars up closer to the houses. If you have somebody coming down South Fox Run, it interferes with people's visibility as to that's an uncontrolled intersection there. The further away from the road we get the cars, I think the happier everybody's going to be.
Any other questions?
On your house, the door that we're seeing that is on the right, the garage door, is that the entrance to the house?
No, that's an entrance to the garage. So the garage, so that's a 16-foot overhead door, and it's, I think, a 21-foot wide garage. So if you can imagine, the garage goes maybe 1.5 feet or so to the left of the overhead door, but then it goes 5 more feet or so to the right of the overhead door. So that leads, the smaller door on the right leads directly into the garage.
And so the entrance to the home, just so I'm getting my bearings, because sometimes it's hard to get everything right. Is on the left side, on the Stonehenge Road side?
Yes.
When you go into the house that way, you park here?
Yes. The entrance is in front. There's another door in back, but the garage is on the side.
Okay. I think that's kind of what I needed to understand.
Noel, Jim?
What's the hang-up? Why couldn't this be allowed? It has to do with the small door?
It has nothing to do with the small door, it has everything to do with parking in the setback, so to speak. So the setback, you can see where the homes are kind of aligned there, and the parking spot is not, well, the expanded driveway does not leave a parking spot beyond the setback line. So if there was an expanded garage door there, it would be permissible. Instead, it's just park in the front setback, or the corner side yard setback. So you can widen your driveway 2 feet beyond the garage door opening either side. They're going 6 feet beyond.
Where does the 8-foot come in? You can widen your garage 8 feet beyond some garage doors
With a single stall.
with a single stall.
Right, that's it's an exception or unique to single stall garages. This is a full 2-stall.
Okay.
You can also go, like you were saying earlier, you can go to a parking spot on the side, correct? If it leads to a parking spot on the side of the garage. But he can't go to the left here, because then he would be in the setback of the left side on this picture? Is that what we're kind of talking about?
Right.
Copy that. Okay.
So the geometry of this corner is conflicting this.
I don't know that for sure.
Okay. Well, they can't put one on the left side.
I think because of the trees that are there, that's
Okay.
not a reality, I guess.
Okay.
But it's more logical, I suppose, to go to the right-hand side for an expansion, just does not meet the current ordinance
Okay.
as
I see.
written.
Any other questions?
I don't have any more questions, all right?
Yeah, I got other questions for Paul, but
Yeah.
Okay. We'll deliberate and take a seat. Anyone else want to speak on behalf of this or against the application? Could you please state your name? Come up here and sit.
Brian McKnight. We live at 2834 South Foxborough Circle, my wife and I live there.
Across the street?
Right across the street. We've been there since 1998,
Okay.
so
All
we're
right.
236, I guess it is, right? The question I have, but I feel uncomfortable coming here only because our neighbors are proximity and they're nice people and we're nice people and, you know, neighborhood all gets along fairly well, but I do have some concerns, and initially when I heard about this, I thought it was just, I know the 2 feet and then plus the 4 feet, 6 feet going to the right, you know. And now what he's explaining a little bit more is that he wants to go 6 feet from the walk-in door. Am I hearing that correctly?
No, 2 feet from the walk-in door.
2 feet to the right of the, we're calling the walk-in door the smaller door.
Yeah.
It would be 2 feet beyond the right edge of the, yes.
Right,
right
and
edge.
then additional on top of that?
No.
No.
No, that's what I wasn't hearing that.
No.
So from the current driveway, the right edge of the current driveway, as you look at the house, from here at this angle, how far out?
6 feet.
6 feet total,
Mhm.
which is what I understood. I got a little confused when he brought up.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
You thought it was 6 feet from the
I thought it was
door.
6 feet from the walk-in door.
No.
But anyway, just concerns I have. Being a neighbor across the street, that's the front of my house, and we're both corner houses. And they have a good-sized family and a lot going on over there. And my concern is, you know, everybody has, at some point in their lives, a third car, sometimes a fourth car, some people, and there's always difficulty managing that situation. But my only concern is there's a lot going on there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against the chickens. They have a chicken coop, a chicken, snowmobile, a trailer, a pool, above-ground pool. And my only concern is that it gets become a staging area for other things throughout the time period. And I'm just curious, and I think they have the same hope, would be want to maintain and enhance the home values around the area. And sometimes if you have too much in your, I guess, side yard in this case, which is my front yard, aesthetically it doesn't look good and it probably brings down values a little bit.
Your concern is that, would it be used as parking?
A staging area for whatever. And I believe there are third neighbors we got across the street, and if they stay there forever, that's great. If they move, then the next neighbors coming in are carte blanche what they want to do. You know, pretty much whatever goes in that driveway, they can put on there. And again, I hope we don't have ill feelings here, but I really debated even coming here today, but my gut feeling says I had to say something because I felt it, and those are my 2 cents here, so you know.
I can try to address the concerns. Brian, you probably noticed we've taken the vegetable gardens
saw
out
that,
there.
yeah, I saw that.
I don't know if you consider that an upgrade or a
Well,
downgrade.
yeah,
But so, in that sense, I think maybe it'll look a little more attractive. And in terms of the parking, I mean, so we do have 3 cars right now. At least one is always in the driveway for that reason. Sometimes during the summer, it's 2 or 3. I mean, it's not going to change where the cars park, just, this way they'll be, I guess, a little bit further away from your house, and the driveway will be a little bit newer, a little bit nicer. In terms of the, I think Anastasia has been moving the dirt out of those gardens. I know the trailer's been sitting there for a while. That's not going to stay there. That's going to go around the back of the house. So that'll be out of the way.
No, I mean, I empathize with everything you're doing, and it's a growing family, and
If the,
it's a lot of stuff there. There's just a lot of things to
Yeah.
handle.
So the third, some of those garden beds are going to be replaced with grass, so that we'll have actually more grass once this is done than we've had the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's an improvement from aesthetic perspective.
Well, I just came to voice my opinion. Like I said, I was hesitant to come here, but I'm glad I did. I don't regret not saying something, but just so I understand this walking away, that it is, what you're proposing is 6 feet from the current driveway in total.
Yeah, so our current driveway is, it's 18 feet total, so this would be 6 feet to the right, so it would make it 24 feet total.
Right, so you, from that walk-in door, you'd just be at probably
2 feet.
2 feet or.
Yeah, yeah.
It looks like an angle, so, right? You come in at an angle.
Well, yes, so it's tapered into it's
Right.
got to be tapered in at the
Yeah.
property line. It can't be more than a certain, so it tapers down to the current driveway at the property line.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know who else got letters. I got one because I think it's 100 feet away or something, that people get letters. And I just want to say something, and
Sure.
that's my 2 cents.
Appreciate that. Does anyone have a question here for Mr. McNulty?
I mean, I hope our neighborhood stays neighborly, so
But- I can say that I appreciate, I guess I'm not surprised that it would be a concern. I appreciate that you all they take great care of their house. So he is bringing everybody else's property value up, and I appreciate that. Thank you. They have a very, very wonderful home.
It all works in the neighborhood, so to speak. So,
Very good. Appreciate it.
thank you. Done, if you will.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
You can stick around, I mean, you don't have to leave.
I appreciate it too, but
Yeah.
no, I think I'm gonna go.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else would like to speak for or against the application? I guess the time comes to deliberate. Any thoughts? No, Jim?
Yeah, so I just, I'm curious about, it seems like the petition here is saying, there's like the quantum superposition of states here in this petition. It's 2 different requests depending on how we want to look at the request. One is saying if we want to look at this request not as a petition for a variance, but an appeal to overturn, apparently your call, Scott, your call on this, Paul?
It wasn't mine directly, it was from our staff.
Okay,
I
so you also have a
didn't see
team?
this initially,
Okay,
right.
so, but, okay, from your office, let's just say, okay, to say that, that the call by your office was that the 2 feet wider than the door language in the code is talking about the overhead doors, not the pedestrian doors, right? I mean, that's the central argument that this seems to be making, that the petitioner here is asking us to say, no, any garage door is fair game for the 2-foot widening, and they're asking us to overrule or overturn your administrative call on this.
Sure.
But then he's saying, well, or if we're not going to do that and we're looking at this as a request for a variance, then it sounds like he's asking not for 2 feet wider for a total of 6 feet beyond the driveway, but total of 9 feet, so that we're looking at a 9-foot wider addition on the drive. Is anybody else reading that the same way as me?
I'm getting 6.
Yeah, if the board considers this application as a request for a variance, the owners request a variance allowing them to widen the north end of the existing driveway by up to 9 feet, i.e. to add a third full driveway stall equal in width to the existing 9-foot stalls.
Anyone?
Yeah, so it seems to me, and not to tell you guys how to do your job, but it would make sense to consider the appeal part first. I think that within the existing code, I can go do what I got there, 6 feet wide or 2 feet beyond the right edge of the door. Let's say that you consider that and you disagree. You say you're wrong, you can't do anything without a variance. Now considering it as a variance, if you're looking at it and saying we're going beyond what the code allows, we're considering a variance to the code, what I had originally wanted to do was to add a third 9-foot wide lane. I mean, it would be the same thing, basically just make the 6 into a 9. You can't, I readily admit you can't do that within the code. That would require a variance. I think I can do 6 within the code. That's the appeal. If the appeal is denied, then, and we're looking at it as a variance, I'd like to go 9. I guess I'd take 6 over nothing.
So to pursue my quantum analogy, basically he's asking for 2 different things simultaneously, depending on the way we think as a group, and then one, we collapse the waveform into this one or that one, depending on how we want to look at this, right?
Yes, correct.
Paul, what's our ability though on his number 1 though? I mean, we're here for variances.
You can also, the board can also hear, appeals for interpretations of what our staff provide, I guess, so that can sort of be your consideration.
Okay.
We can have a discussion about that, but it is kind of twofold, I guess, like Neil was saying.
Yeah.
But I think our position's clear about what the requirements are, and for consistency, it's the garage door, the overhead garage door opening, it's not.
What's the
any other
actual
door.
language say with regard to that 2-foot?
Right, so this is from 1705, 13-1705. It says, an additional 2 feet may be provided beyond either side of the garage door for 2 stall or larger attached garages. So if you wanted to read between the lines, you could pick apart that language a little bit, but I think the intention is that it's an overhead door. That it gives you some flexibility to go either side for door swings and so forth.
When you say overhead door, you're talking about a garage door.
Yes.
The vehicle door, not the pedestrian.
And so the argument is debating whether the garage door entry door is also considered a garage door.
Right, so a garage door to me is a garage door. I think it seems maybe apparent,
Yeah.
maybe not to everyone.
Right, and the petitioner is saying it's a door into the garage, ergo it's a garage door.
We would consider
We
that
can go
other
2
door
feet
a
beyond
service
that.
door that allows access to the house.
And that's the language you might have used had you addressed some particular aspect of the code. You said service door to the garage.
Is there any language about service doors in the code?
Not all homes have service doors.
Right.
So the idea, I think, of 1705 is to address the garage door opening and the driveway opening into the to the property. So that's been our intent, that's the interpretation. I think that was always, I think we've been consistent on that.
Yeah,
over the years.
yeah. And one might argue that we could clarify and say the vehicular access garage door or something like that.
In codes, we provide detail, but there's always some ambiguity between,
Yeah,
reading
I get
between
it.
the lines sometimes, so.
I get it. So it seems then when we're looking at this though, it's like, okay, we can reject the staff read of what we mean by garage door in favor of the petitioner's interpretation. And then, and then they get to do the 6-foot width, here. Or we can say, you know what, no, we agree with the staff read on the language here. Let's not overturn the staff decision, but then we look at this document in the form of its request for variance. And it doesn't mean that we have to say yes to a 9-foot extension. We could still say, yeah, no, we'll grant you the 2-foot case you made beyond the service door, and it's for a total of 6-foot width, but we're not going to go any beyond that.
Right, so in the staff's mind, it's a 4-foot variance. You're going 2 feet and another 4 feet deeper than that, 6 feet. It's a 4-foot.
Okay, because that's right, because they got the 2 existing.
The 2's permissible.
Okay.
So do more
4
past the door.
Right, but again, the board could, grant more larger opening, up to 9 or 10, or whatever you chose based on.
Or
the requirements.
an inch beyond the 2-foot, right? so that's our call.
Well, you're drawing the 6 foot, is that up to scale on your little map here?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, as much as I can do with
Okay.
a pencil, but yes, I mean, that's, I think, pretty close to what it would look like.
Okay.
You know, when I'm looking at the other images in the neighborhood here and the aerials, I mean, they all have that.
Right.
They
They
all
do.
have that
I know, that's what I was asking.
extra lane,
Yeah.
just like this. Maybe others are well, they don't look like they're within the setback. There's some of these other pictures here, they're very clearly not, beyond the setback, so I don't know how this.
So there's different generations of driveways, right? So
Right.
I think with our department, the inspection department was part of another division in City Hall, and some authority was given to the Director of Public Works to allow certain cases to expand driveways up to 8 feet. So some of the driveways you see from this era may have been through a variance, may have been through not getting a permit, may have been through the Department of Public Works. There's any number of cases that might be,
We don't know how that happened.
right, so we're dealing with code that deals from 2006 onward. So we're trying to be consistent with the updated zoning code, some 13 years ago already. So some of these things you see from this era, from this generation of homes, probably would not meet current standards, but they were operating under a different condition many years ago.
Sure.
So you're looking at the current code and maintaining that standard.
What is the concern of doing that? If it was there before, why would it get eliminated?
I think it was more administrative, and I think in 2006, we revised the code to be hopefully more clear on what's permissible, where driveways can go and how wide they can be.
There's no safety concerns, anything like that?
I don't think there's any safety concerns here, no. I think from an aesthetic perspective, our concern becomes how wide driveways get. They don't become parking lots, so to speak.
But as it is at the curb, this is probably the narrowest driveway in the neighborhood.
It could be in some cases.
I mean, you look at the aerials, it's not, some of the ones right in the vicinity there.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
every
look at
circum-
159. Yeah, it's got on both sides
Top left, you're saying?
there. Yeah. And then the one next door, what is that?
I don't know if they're all 2 stalls. I think some are 2 stalls. There could be a 3rd stall in there. I guess I don't want to start comparing.
Yeah,
I can answer,
Right.
159 is a 2-stall, 160 is a 2-stall, 161 is a 3-stall.
Okay.
But again, each property is unique, and the case before you is unique to this.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Yeah, and I think from the standpoint of, where we're at, there's, given the position of the house on the lot, it's a corner lot, it's got double frontage with double setbacks, digging it, and there's not enough clearance on the north side of this house to put a drive on that side. You couldn't resolve this necessarily by, sneaking through on the other side.
And you couldn't add another driveway on that side as well.
Right,
so.
right. So it's,
I think Noel's hitting on kind of what my thoughts are. I mean, hardship, right? We look at the land, and does the land allow you to do things that fit within the code? And if you went to the left, which is
You're
technically
breaking
the
another
side of
rule.
his house in a lot of ways, well, now you're going towards the street, towards the front of the house. And a lot of those photos that we saw, I think, go away from the service door or towards the quote-unquote side of the house, but that there is no side of the house based on the corner. So I do think there's a frame to look at, the property and the way the house is built creates a unique condition to consider, at least, to talk through.
Right. To get a legal spot, you'd have to go all the way around the house and get into the rear yard.
This way.
So you'd end up paving quite a bit of
Yeah,
the front, the
yeah.
corner side.
Yep,
Right.
so then now you're adding
We'd be
less grass.
hurting them to do that.
I like the fact that he's got distance between the neighbor, there's cover, I'm okay with it with the 6, but not the 9.
Yeah, I think I am too.
So the question there, though, is from a structure, so let's say the board's in agreement, we're okay with 6, but not 9. Do we just say, okay, cool, we
Yeah, we can approve it how we want.
Well,
so-
I know, but if he's approved the first request, which is basically override the decision by the building code, it gets to 6. But we say no to that, but then we
Yeah,
approve the variance
yeah.
up to 6.
Yeah,
We got the
I
same
agree, I
solution.
agree with the staff interpretation of the language in terms of the code. I think that's consistent.
I
It'd be
do.
clarified or something, sure, but I'm not gonna split hairs over it. I think you would have called it a service door, or you would have the code would have said something like, any garage door or service door can have this thing done around it, but you
Right.
didn't, or you just said garage door, and I think we all generally accept that to mean the one that goes up and down.
Yeah, we agree there.
So from my perspective, I reject that argument, but, like I said, don't want to see the full 9, so I would move to approve.
Do we have to deny, real quick, just
No,
operation?
I don't think
deny?
so, because it's just one thing here. Let's say, I would move to approve a variance granting a 4-foot extension beyond the normally permitted 2-foot extension consistent with the drawing that's been provided here for a maximum 6-foot width expansion of that driveway.
I'll second this.
Okay, you have a motion for this, what's that?
I mean, Jim, we didn't hear
Jim.
Jim.
No, I'm in agreement.
Okay.
Can I just comment real briefly? I think actually that would only end up in a 5-foot, because currently I'm 1 foot beyond the edge of my, maybe this is a point of clarification, so the request was for 6 feet beyond the existing driveway.
Yeah, and you can go 2 feet, because it's 2 feet beyond the door. I hear what you're saying, because you're already a foot beyond the door, so I revise my motion to say 5 feet beyond right, you get what he's saying, Paul? Yeah, okay.
Or 6 feet beyond the current edge.
His driveway's 1 foot already beyond that door.
And you can go up to 2.
And you can go up to 2, so let's make it a 5-foot, so it's a total of a 6-foot width expansion. We still get to the goal of saying it's a total of 6 feet expansion from the edge of that existing pavement.
Okay.
Yeah, but 2 feet is permissible, so I think you're
But
right
he's already
before.
1 over.
Yeah, but we don't need to improve that. He can do 1 tomorrow and not even come to us. So you were right originally.
No, I want to let him go 6 feet wider than the existing driveway.
Yeah, but he can go 1 foot without a variance, what I'm saying. So if you give him 5, he can go foot and then another foot, so now it's 7
That's a
feet.
total of 6. No, it's,
The variance doesn't include 2 feet, correct? So
but he's
got
already
1
consumed 1 feet of that, 1 foot. of-
Correct, so the variance needs to be for 4.
Well, the 6
No.
is just the overall distance that was represented.
Yeah.
You get 5 more feet.
Regardless, the pavement shall not exceed an additional 6 foot of width from the edge of the driveway.
Perfect.
Existing driveway.
Well, and sorry to be contentious, because he said,
Yeah.
I'll take 9, I'll take as much as I can get.
Yeah, but we're not going to.
But that would give him 7,
It would give him 7,
total of 7.
If he's already 1 over.
correct.
6 more feet
It's either
beyond
we
the
approve
edge.
it 4, or we say extend it no further than 6 beyond the garage door opening, however we want to do it. But if you say 5 right now, it'll be 7.
Okay, all right. If I say 5 right now, it'll be 7.
Well, hold on, you just,
I
why
promise.
don't you just say he gets a total of
Right.
5 more feet? That's it, right?
No, it's a total of 6 more feet from the edge of the pavement.
But he's already got 1.
I think
It doesn't matter.
I think, there's a confusion between the pavement and the door. So he's
Yeah.
already 1 foot beyond the garage.
Yeah, I'm talking about 6 feet beyond the edge of the current pavement.
Okay. I'm
That's the
fine.
motion.
I'm fine with that.
Which would give you a total of 7.
Yeah, no, I'm not okay with that. I'm okay with 6 total from the edge of the garage door.
Gotcha.
Which is smaller than what I'm asking for.
Right,
Yep, we know that. We know that.
we know that. So we know, okay.
Which, I guess my only concern is that sort of cuts it a little
How much
tight
do
in
we
terms
need for a
of.
car?
That's why I'm saying,
Depends on the size of the car, you might need at least 8 feet,
Okay, 7 feet, sounds good.
considering some door swings.
I agree with no.
All right.
We're
No,
good.
no, why don't you make your motion?
no, I'm not sure I want to. So what are you saying? You're saying we should approve?
You're
It's
fine
6
with it.
feet beyond the concrete, the current concrete, 6 feet beyond the current
All
concrete.
right, so as measured by the flower beds in this picture here, that
I apologize.
that the drive can extend up to 6 feet wider than its current width,
Correct.
Okay.
notwithstanding any sort of existing door positions, placements, or widths that may or may not be exceeded. You can
Or
add
pavement.
6 foot width, additional width to the pavement of that driveway,
Yep.
consistent with this drawing here.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
That's the motion.
Motion, do we have a
Second.
second? Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Halverson to approve the variance for an additional 6 feet for the drawing submitted by the applicant. We have a second by Mr. Halverson. All in favor? Aye. You have your variance.
Thank you.
4-0.
I just wanted to make sure. Sorry, Noel.
No, you were completely right.
No, don't say that.
Okay, no, seriously.
I was confused.
You were dead right. That's great. Thank you.
My thing didn't pop up.
Just stumble through it.
Go mark it.
Yeah.
Right, we dealt with number 1. Number 2 is gone, that's my old number 2. So we'll go on to the Fritches on Aldine Court. Hello there. Are you Mr. Fritsch?
I'm Casey Fritsch.
Could you make the case for the variance that you would like to have?
So to give a background on the property, in December 2016, I applied for a backyard variance for a setback. Just because the yard it's a unique shape, it's on a cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac has a 25-foot offset, which from my review, I cannot find another 25-foot offset on a cul-de-sac in east side of Green Bay whatsoever. They're all 15. And I also, on the south property line, there's a 10-foot variance or easement for the stormwater pond here in the city of Green Bay. So in December, the variance was granted basically to have this portion of the house encroach on this because we were already set back here. And we were trying to get 3 stalls to match everybody else. This is basically the smallest lot on that arc. So that's kind of the basis behind it. And through what we got the variance granted to us for the setback, in the process, they were currently working on the 2 solid streets on Barronwood Street. And at that time, they were putting sidewalks in, and we were also petitioning on the entire street itself not to have sidewalks in the cul-de-sac. That was kind of up in the air yet whether we were going to have to put them in or not. And basically, everybody on Barronwood Street and Satellite Court, which is to the south of me, all of their aprons were getting replaced at the owner's cost, and because the sidewalks were in the wrong spot relative to the fire hydrants and the electrical and trees that were planted in the setback. So I was, obviously I'm a civil engineer myself, and I was concerned about why I needed the sidewalk at 25 feet, and I was also concerned that if I put it there, I would be in line with fire hydrant. I'm not made of gold, and I didn't really want to replace the sidewalk in the apron like everybody else was doing 1 street south of me 1 year later. So in the meantime, I was contacting the City of Green Bay Engineering Department if they could give me a stake of where I needed to put this driveway. Partly because between this house and this house, there's over 3 feet of pitch in that sidewalk, so if we did connect the sidewalks, someone would be replacing their driveway because it's not up to code. This sidewalk, instead of following the arc around, it makes a big dog leg down into the encroachment, so that sidewalk is technically incorrect as it sits right now. Now, these are all houses installed after 2010. So I was obviously concerned. I poured concrete in the past. I've worked with the city of Appleton, I worked with other cities, and I wanted a stakeout. I wanted a location of what I could build because I knew I had the setback. My house is, as you can see, sitting right tight against the front yard setback. There's extreme grade change from here to here. There's over 12 feet. I had to have modifications to my basement walls. Thankfully, I'm an engineer and I was able to stamp it myself. But the Out of the variance in December was basically no harm, no foul, and $500 taxes versus $5,000. And in August, right before I was ready to pour it, I finally got a hold of someone from the engineering department. And they came out on August 16th or 17th when I was in Virginia for work. And all the forms are up, and they approved it because of my concern with why am I pouring the sidewalk dead center of a fire hydrant? That person no longer works with the city of Green Bay. They won't give me his name for obvious reasons. But it was poured the next day, and it's sat there. We got the approval, the first inspection on September like 8th, and it was never brought up by the inspector. There was 4 things on the inspection list. They were taken care of within a few days. One thing I didn't agree with the inspector on was a step. We went back and forth. He came, I sent an email, it was done. It's been sitting like this since September, August of 2017. I got a letter in January of this year saying that it needed to be ripped out and it needed a re-inspection for that and one outlet on the electrical. At that point, I called for the inspection. The inspector never came out because he said it was not done, and I said I needed it in writing that it needed to be ripped out anyways, and I wanted someone to stake it out where it needed to be ripped out. Because I had a quote, and basically we're at $3K to rip it out and put grass back in, or whatever I can be allowed to put back in. At that point, it was null, and nothing until about June 7th or 11th, and basically said it's a $1,000 fine and $50 per day to rip it out, unless I apply for a variance. And it would be an update to the variance that's existing apparently. So that's where we're at. It's currently, the lot shape does not allow me to wing out to my 30 feet that I'm allowed. And if I park a car here, I'm basically touching the sidewalk. Square footage wise, this is less than what I'm allowed. If you're allowed 25 feet on the back side and 30 on the front, with the wing walls at 687 square feet, this is currently 686 square feet. And what's kind of hard about the whole thing is it was approved by a city engineer. And I have no documentation of it, besides phone calls, and I talked to a lawyer about going back and getting the phone calls, but that's where we're at today. As far as any problems with the neighbors, the neighbor directly to the south, there's an open lot, and it's an open because of part of that reason. It's a difficult lot to build on as well. The neighbor that owns that is immediately to the south of that. His is 28 feet wide. It was not ever an issue. And besides that, I have over 10 houses in the city of Green Bay that have been built after me that are over 30 feet wide, over bigger than mine, and without the hardships, without the unique lot, without the extra 25-foot setback, without the grade change, and without a 10-foot utility easement on the south side. And when talking to the inspector, they were approved because they needed to move in that house that in December, and they didn't pour the concrete till next year, so they poured whatever they wanted the next year. And that was that.
So the city's objecting to the fact that you're 32 feet instead of what should be
25 right there.
So what's the city's view of this?
Well, I can't speak for the entire city, I guess. It's just simply a variance request that's come in. It's a non-traditional driveway. It's a tight lot. It doesn't meet the dimension at the property line. So what you have is a pavement line, a terrace area, right-of-way line, and this would be the, I guess, the sidewalk section and the building setback. And at this point here, it should be no greater than 25 feet. And then it would somehow come down and flare out to the curb line, which just, a number of circumstances just doesn't allow that.
The applicant contends that there was at least implicit approval by some various inspections done and led him to believe that things were okay.
I really can't speak to that. I'm simply responding to what's before you at the board.
Is this aerial view an accurate depiction of?
It's a Google Earth 2018.
Okay.
It is digitized in there based on
Yeah,
coordinates.
this is the current photo that we have.
All the parcel lines are from the Brown County GIS department.
Paul, for my sake, I tend to be the slowest on the uptake here. I will fall on that. What specifically, I mean, there's sidewalks, there's this. Is there one variance? Is there multiple
Yeah,
variances?
one
What
variance.
specifically is the one variance that we're looking at?
It would be the width of the driveway at the right-of-way line. It
Okay.
would be no greater than 25 feet. So it's represented as 32 feet approximately. So this is the right-of-way line here,
Yep.
and this would be a sidewalk section you'd see in your driveway typically. So at this point, it should be no greater than 25 instead of 32.
Okay, and the opening is 23?
Right, it's almost like
Currently,
it's almost like it's inverted. It really
Yep.
should be the other way around.
So in theory, if this was to code without a variance needed, that driveway would not flare, it would go straight in from the curb at 23, go straight in at the same width?
Well, it could go 30 feet here max, and then it would taper back to here, to 25. Now, how you do that is a little tricky just because of the geometrics of it, I guess, but the main variance request is 25 feet at the right of way.
In theory, what we're doing is pretending that the driveway's already been built too wide, and we're approving the width of the driveway. I mean, that's simply what it is. The sidewalk stuff, all of that stuff is not part of this.
That's not part of this.
That's not
This is
part of
strictly
this.
a
It's just-
zoning code issue.
Just strictly background.
Yeah, and I'm troubled by the story the petitioner tells us about, communication challenges and, well, heck, the photo showing sidewalk up to a hydrant is a bit of a challenge, and to think that somebody looked at the forms for pouring that and said it's good to go, that's really, a concern to me as somebody who values, the city and its work and its the need to perform work. And I would love for us to have a deeper understanding of what happened and how to avoid those sorts of things in the future, right?
I'm an engineer myself, and I've never ever thought about being on a board or being anything involved with the city or a county. But after this experience, I'm consider being on a board and spending my time away from my kids just for stuff like this. Because it's quite honestly been hell over the last 2 years getting calls and getting this and getting that letter. And then just getting verbals for 6 months from the inspector. And then trying to get questions out of people has been very difficult. And I do work with cities and counties all the time in my job, and it shouldn't be that difficult.
Right. So, but as Paul says, he can't represent
Yeah,
the
whatever happened is water under
DPW
the
or
bridge at
whatever,
this
and
point.
this is, water under the bridge, exactly. So, looking at, from the standpoint of my perspective, looking at this lot, I mean, you've got a significant grade change from one end to the other. You're the funny pizza slice on the cul-de-sac. You've got a 10-foot wide utility easement that everything had to be rejiggered around as well, and a host of other challenging aspects to the physical design of this lot. If you were coming here today and saying, this is the best way I can design this, given the constraints I've got, as you talked to us in the past and looked at this site, I'd be inclined to say, do what you gotta do, because we want to get this lot developed, and this is the best way you're making, something work with a challenging parcel. So I'm inclined to, and then our approval of a variance wipes away the hardship you're having in terms of dealing with some of the non-compliance issues that you're getting grief about, even though you're saying another hand of the city specifically approved it, although we can't document that today. So my inclination would be to support the requested variance that's presented so that we can end this nightmare.
I tend to agree that we should have some discussion there, but are we at that point? Is there anybody else here that needs to speak for or against, or?
Yeah, is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this, sir?
Matt Moosbach, I'm a neighbor of Casey, and I just would like to say I'm for him getting the variance. I think he has a beautiful house, the driveway's beautiful. I'm not an engineer by any means, but just for me, it kind of made sense to what he did. And unless you were putting lines to it, with measurements, you never notice the difference between one driveway and another.
Okay, thank you.
Which house are you on?
On the house to the left.
Okay.
With the hydrant,
Correct. So,
Yeah, I mean-
and actually, I had this conversation with the hydrant. We had a get-together over the 4th, and two of my friends were concrete guys, and I was always wondering why the sidewalk, because it's poured correct into each one of our driveways, and you look over and it, like you said, it runs right, mine runs right into that same hydrant, and then you look up to the neighbor to the left of that, and I don't know how many feet it is, but it's like 4 or 5 feet up, and our driveways are like 25 feet from each other. Like, it was a
you don't typically
unusual
put stairs and
setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And that was the whole adamant side to the department first, because it was like, in the past, I've got pins from people. They came out and said, here's your pin, you need to be 3 inches above the curb, and here's your 2 spots. And pour your sidewalk, and that's that. And it was like, can I have that? And it was like, no.
this seems like a situation where there's never going to be an intended sidewalk actually put in there.
No, because at the same time, parallel to us building, we got the variance, I don't know if it was actually called a variance or not, but not to put sidewalks in the cul-de-sac. So right after I got this variance and had the concrete poured, I think the variance came out for the sidewalks that it was an old lot, there was no reason to put it.
So this type of, like, you do this for a living, this designing?
No, but it's a good thing I did, because
You have some experience with
I
it.
would not have built the house here, and there's a reason why no spec house builder built the house here.
For 7 years, you were saying, right?
Yeah, I don't know how many plans I put on a drawing to try making that house fit. Everything's a goofy angle. Instead of a 45 or a 30, it's like a 27 and a half. My wife liked the stormwater pond with bugs, so.
That's
I
another
made it
issue
work.
we have no control over.
I had no control over that one.
I have 2 questions before you move forward, real quick. One, because it's, like, do we have enough information, because the driveway's already been widened, right? If we were widening a driveway, which looks like it's going towards the house, is there concrete or parking in front of a door entrance at this point? Do we know the answer to that question?
I don't believe so. I think it leads out to the garage.
So the full concrete goes straight into garage doors? Does it go to?
Garage.
Okay, because if it, let's say it wasn't there, we
No, there's
would
no-
consider that.
There's no side service door or anything like that.
Okay.
It's a double door and a single door.
And based on the driveway, was that the width you came up with so it fits 3 cars? Or what was the decision in terms of fanning it out that far instead of fanning it out to 25 feet, which then would fit?
I drove a car in it. I mean, that was the biggest thing, is in CAD, I kept putting a car and trying to back out of the one stall furthest to the east, and you couldn't make it work. And then, right before we set the forms up and had the engineer come out, it was like, we literally drove on the ground and we painted drawings on the ground saying, this is how we can get in, and we can't even get into this other stall. And like, we had lines painted on the ground.
Okay.
And it was like, this is all we can do, and what the engineer that stopped by expressed was, okay, you're only 23 at the lot, and you're 32 there, and it was like a balance, and he agreed. And obviously, I was in Virginia and should have got documentation of it, because we wouldn't be here, but.
So basically what this is a large apron. This is the parking area, basically. This is basically the driveway.
Yep.
This doesn't have the luxury of spreading out, stacking those cars.
And the reason it's an issue pulling out is because of the angle you're hitting the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, the angle you're hitting the
Yeah,
cul-de-sac
the guy to
relative.
your left, he's going straight down it, so it's not the same.
He's going straight down, and he was able to, you
Okay.
can see his garage is another 6 feet back,
Yeah.
so it gives you room. And the other house to the left of it, his garage is another, 7, 8 feet back from that 25 foot.
But he's got more lot to work with going deep, but you
Yeah.
don't because of the environmental
Yes,
conditions
correct.
back there.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, but it isn't.
Because, yeah, if I could have backed it up another 10 foot, I could have came straight at it and had the 25 and the 30.
All right, cool.
That's what we're here for.
I'm good with it.
I am too.
I move approval as requested.
I'll second.
Okay, regarding Mr. Fritsch's variance request, we have a motion made by Mr. Halverson, seconded by Mr. Eversman to approve it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hopefully, the experience moving forward is a little smoother.
Yeah.
He just remember how good we were too.
I remember the first time. You want to be on the board, talk to Paul.
Thank
We're always
you.
looking for new members.
Just kidding.
Next up, Mr. Mock. Hi.
Okay, this is for Newcomer Funeral Home. They have purchased the adjacent lots, the one to the north along South Monroe, which used to
Steel
be,
Master.
yes, the old florist.
This one here?
Yep. And then one on Crooks to the west, which was just a multifamily property. They've since raised those, and their plans ultimately are to build a garage and crematorium expansion to the west down Crooks, and additional parking to the north. Currently, the site, as it sits, by new previously allowed use under previous codes, does not meet parking requirements or green space. So what we're doing here is expanding the parking to get it closer to meeting the ordinance requirements and meeting their needs as well. One of the things there, we're making a connection to the church on the north side in order to have shared parking, because the two facilities rarely conflict when they have their parking needs. So they've worked out an agreement with them so they can make that connection, have shared parking access. Even though the site technically doesn't meet the parking codes 100%, we've got it a lot closer. We've added 15 stalls from the previous site, but as a result, the green space is still over the requirements. One of the things that we've done to mitigate the impervious area impact, as well as to address the stormwater management, is we're using porous pavers as a stormwater management practice. Those are shown as the kind of the boxed areas on the north side of the parking, and then to the west of the crematorium and garage expansion. Those will be porous pavers where water will flow into them, work down, filter through, and be collected through under drains, stored and released slowly. Also has the effect of effectively reducing the impervious surface on the lot. So when you take those porous pavers into account, we are actually decreasing the impervious surface from what was there previously, albeit slightly. Hardship is that this was an approved use, and we're trying to make it better and get closer to the ordinance. But with the office residential and a building this size, we just cannot meet the parking and the green space. And there aren't additional adjacent properties available for purchase either.
When you say the existing is decreasing, you're talking about all of them, including the additional one that was acquired? Or are you
Yes.
talking about the prior ownership of just the lot? Prior lot?
Based on this picture here with
Yeah.
the florist and the existing home,
Okay.
the impervious surface on that was
78.4.
78.4.
Okay.
And then when we account for the permeable pavers, then we're converting the florist into parking, and
Mhm.
with the expansion, at the end of this total project, we'll be at 76.8, I believe, so it's.
Okay,
it's
so
a
you're
slight
talking about the
increase.
whole thing?
The whole thing,
Yeah.
yeah,
Did-
okay, right.
Do those permeable pavers, Is the site graded so that actually is like the drain for
Right.
some of the surface lot too?
Rather than having a catch basin, we drain to those areas.
And so, one could argue that they're actually having a bigger impact than just, because it's not like the whole surface lot is still running off into
Right.
the storm sewer as an event
It's
occurs.
highly functional. It's like having a biofilter or a pond
Yeah.
there.
But you're just going off the raw percentages
Correct.
still? So there actually is maybe more of an impact that you're not getting credit for in some respect with regard to permeability?
Well, we still had to meet the city stormwater requirements, so that those requirements forced us to bring it down, reduce our discharges, and treat for water quality as well. So, but that's not necessarily a variance issue. But yes, they are an extremely functional
Do we have a
piece of our solution.
calculation in terms of, you're kind of making a point, which is great, but do we have a calculation in terms of what it would be if you didn't credit those as
Sure.
impervious?
And correct me if I'm wrong in this, Paul, but in the past, we've counted those as pervious area. So, but without that.
Well, you have, so by making it that way, it is considered no different than grass.
From a zoning perspective, our stormwater engineer might view it differently, but we view it as green space, because it's penetrating.
You treat it the same way because the water can penetrate.
That's all I need to know. It's
And
fine.
Okay. Without it, we're 82.4, so we're 4% or so higher.
Well, is it fair to say that the penetration through those bricks is more than the grass?
Yes.
And do you know by how much?
Orders of magnitude.
It is?
Yeah, the way these are set up, they're, you think of a typical paver block,
Mhm.
but they have little offsets on the side of them
Mhm.
that create maybe a 3/16 inch gap in
Mhm.
between those, and they're filled with a very porous stone. At installation, these systems are able to pass through like 100 inches per hour.
Okay.
Soils in there probably you won't get an inch per hour out of.
Right, so I guess a point is those pavers are actually increasing the permeability that they're not really getting credit for.
Yeah, they're
So-
reducing the total runoff.
Yeah,
of the
so
site.
instead of in the 70s, you may actually be down to the 50s, 40s, or 30s, in terms of if it were pavement. I mean, another lot.
Well, but the thing is, but there's permeability is, we talk about it with regard to like rainfall and water, but it's also a way for the zoning guys to say, look, we're talking about, we don't want to pave the planet here, right? And so they look at that also as a function of like, hey, we want some green space, we want some other stuff,
Oh, right.
right?
There's an aesthetic
Aesthetic
point
piece.
too as well.
Right. And
Instead of parking, you could have a tree there or some other
Right.
Right.
vegetation.
This is not aesthetic, this is just getting water.
I'm
where
sure they're
we want it to
fine-looking
go.
pavers.
Yeah,
Right, but this is technology making the situation
Right.
a lot better.
Yeah.
And
right.
to touch on the aesthetics, do you have our landscape plan available?
I don't think I do right now.
Okay. They are doing some extensive landscaping out there to match what they've done already in front of the existing funeral home. If you notice the parking, that's, I think, well, they've done a few things since then, but the parking is set back so it matches the front of the building. They're going to do a couple trees in front there, and then there'll be 4 canopy trees planted between this parking lot and the church in those islands. And then along the west side, there'll be a board-on-board vinyl fence and extensive landscaping in that buffer area to the west of that new parking.
So the existing parking's in the light gray box that you have up there?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the only parking right now that exists?
There is,
No, because there's also parking where the addition would be going.
right, there's.
Yeah, I'm talking, right now. is what exists,
Correct, there's
right?
parking right now between the existing funeral home and that multifamily
So is there a
house.
lot of parking on the street during event?
There's overflow.
Is there-
No, or they park in the church parking lot
They-
too.
They park in the
That's
church
thing.
parking lot, they park across the street. Now we're just giving them, we're channelizing where they're going and doing
Yeah.
it legally with an agreement with the church
Okay, that makes sense.
and trying to keep them off the streets.
Yeah.
Because logically, people are gonna park as close to the door as possible, which is gonna push them to the north and to the church lot before they go all the way to the west. Because we're lazy.
Seemed good to me.
I'm okay with it.
It seems like you're making the most of a, I mean, it's a landlocked urban parcel full of asphalt. I mean, what else are you gonna do? You're making it better.
Yep.
Does this change in terms of, it's 3 different lots, right?
They're going to
Or are
combine
they-
all of them into one parcel.
Has that already been done?
I think they have been combined, we've submitted the
It's
petition.
probably, I don't quite recall, but.
So this isn't contingent on those 3, right? Because if they were treated individually, it would be a variance difference?
It would be much different, much different. Setbacks, everything in use would come into play. If they can put it together as one tax parcel, it's a better situation from,
Right, I just want to make sure our variance approval doesn't go like, oh, well, they're not joined, so it doesn't matter, so we don't need to put any contingencies
that's something that we
in
would
there.
address as part of the site plan. It may already be done.
Got it, okay.
And we've got your landscaping plan.
Oh, okay.
Here.
I just not sure, yeah.
Got it, okay.
Cool. I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to approve the variance requested for the funeral home. Oh, good point. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak for or against this issue?
I'm for it.
Okay, we shall count that.
That's why I'm here.
Is that really why you're here?
Yeah, to make sure it went through.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We should do more parking lots with those pavers.
We do.
The whole city in those.
Well, they're not cheap.
And money's coming, let's just find money. Paul, you got money. Take
Not much.
donations.
Pass the hat.
Mr. Horak?
So serious.
Hi, you'd like to add some parking space
Yes,
that isn't necessarily on the grass.
that is correct. Basically, we have a 5-unit situation, and we have 4 slots for parking with 4 garages. And this is kind of depicting going east, and this is the area we'd like to extend the drive for a parking stall. And the need for that is either the 5th person in this particular multiplex has to park on the street or make other arrangements. So, and we've had situations where students from the university have used it, but they don't have a car, and they would make arrangements. But the reality is, students today have vehicles, and we're close to UWGB, and we're trying to work out some arrangement with the biology department on blue-green algae. And we have access to the bay on the north side of the property for sampling. And we'll have consistent sampling as a result of this. But back to the original situation, we need a 5th parking spot to eliminate parking on the street. Now, I went down to the planning office, and I did not realize that the setback is 25 feet. Is that correct? Isn't it 25 feet?
The width of the driveway can be no greater than 25 feet. There are some setbacks that are in play as well, but I don't think that's part of the request necessarily.
I asked him about putting in a drive or an access point that would go due north. And the city planning person that I spoke with said, well, that kind of turn, number one, is going to be impossible. realistically.
So this is the subject property right here, and here's the garage and the drive. And I think the variance request is to expand this driveway width this way and create a parking area
Thank you.
to the
Yes.
north. So existing garages, existing driveway, once they extend that pavement this way and then go back here, kind of create a parking lot area almost. To
Well,
extend that drive area.
if, one could extend the drive north as was depicted, and I don't know if, I think that's 14 feet. I don't know if it would actually have to be 14 feet. That was suggested by a friend of the asphalt guy. But that is basically what I'm requesting. And leaving an abutment type of thing on the east side to make sure that there was no impediment to exiting the facility, that stair.
Is that like a dead end there?
Pardon me?
This is a
It
dead,
is a
the
dead
street
end.
dead ends there?
Correct.
Okay.
So the street at the top, and 2 green lines at the top, those are currently used as parking spots. And then you have the 2 garages coming this way, so those are your 4 spots? Is that what we're talking about right now?
It's just four.
4 across this
slots,
way?
Four slots in front of the garage.
Because in the picture, there's 2 cars parked
Uh,
in the other
I see
part.
the drive.
That, those 2, right?
Well, there are 4 garages.
They're at the end of the street. They're facing due north, or north towards the bay.
Correct.
Right, but is that used as parking spots
Yeah,
currently?
but it shouldn't be.
But it should
Right,
be.
it's probably,
Correct.
it's
That's why
actually
we're
restricted
talking.
parking.
Yeah.
They could get a ticket there if they're parked between 3 and 5 in the morning.
Correct, and that really should be eliminated. I mean, in terms of that vulnerability of anyone parking there. Plus, in winter, it's a hazard.
Because they want to just push the snow up there and probably, right? in the
Correct.
Paul, I'm just trying to get my bearings, because I
Yep.
think sometimes it's better when you kind of explain the pictures and all that stuff. Can you go back to the other picture?
Sure.
So what you're proposing on the drawing is just not to go behind where the tree is, but just to take the driveway right
Correct.
here and go over,
And go north.
and almost match up with the current end of the street. So basically that green space
He's
right there.
talking about doing something right here.
Right here.
That's
But
correct.
then putting something here to make sure that no cars get too close to the bottom of that stairs.
Correct.
Right.
Well stated.
What's the variance here, Paul? I'm trying to understand it a little bit.
It's the width of the driveway again, so the width at the proper right-of-way line is 25 feet max. I think they've probably already exceeded that, but now it's a continuing.
Because there's just a bank of like 4 garage stalls right here. I mean, this is probably built,
20.
yeah, at the edge of the existence of zoning or something like
Right,
that, right?
The edge of Green Bay.
So what happens to that little staircase going up? Will it be like, see when, in that picture, Paul, going back, so when the pavement comes in, does it go straight up to that staircase, or how does that work?
Well, there will be an abutment
Okay.
and a space, I think, like about 5 feet,
Okay.
to ensure that that thing is not violated, that space isn't
Okay.
violated.
Gotcha.
And there's no room to have, like, you can't drive off the road and then head north because there's gonna be cars there potentially.
Right.
Right, the pavement stops here. So this is, again, city right-of-way, city streets, so any sort of expansions, all this pavement would have to be expanded. So there might be some challenges just to expand the driveway here with our Department of Public Works, because there's an expansion on the right-of-way, but still, I think the first issue at hand is the widening of the
Allowing
line.
them to.
Consider that.
So considering that staircase, because I try to like frame it against other things we've approved, is that staircase an entrance to another apartment?
Yes.
So is it fair to consider that that is parking in theory in front of an entrance?
Yes.
If it was a single story and that was the front door of a house?
It's a means of egress for another unit in that building.
But I think he said there's gonna be space.
Yeah, I mean, I'll bring that up in our deliberation. I just wanted to point that out.
Yep.
Yeah, there are units above the garage.
Yeah, I think.
That's the design of the structure, it's apartments above garages, right?
Correct.
We want to know what the distance is between the bottom step and the abutment that you're proposing as a.
I think it's about 5. If you go, oh,
Yeah, if you do the math, it's 5 feet, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5 feet, well, to that line.
the abutment would be included in that additional space.
Is it 25 by, what is that, 19?
I think it's 19, it looks like 19.
Is that
thought he said
like
14.
exactly the amount you would need to fit a reasonable sized vehicle? Or do you know, I mean,
Well,
pretty
you know,
pretty reasonable?
Yeah.
well, a garage door is about what?
I would say anywhere between 8 and 10 feet
Okay.
per stall.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd be able to park a couple of cars going.
Well, actually, you know,
South there, next to
the
each other.
19 or 14 or whatever it is, feet is not etched in stone. It's just the fact that we need additional extension of the existing drive.
What about flipping that box and going farther towards the existing road, so bringing the 25 feet? See what I'm saying? Just turning the box so that the staircase isn't as, and bringing the 25
So
feet.
just go due north.
Here, and right, 19 here, gives more room in front of the staircase. That's another.
Paul, are you saying there's encroachment issues with the lake or the bay?
I
Is
don't
it a
believe-
lake or is it a bay?
It's the bay.
It's a bay.
It's the bay. Is there
Green Bay.
city encroachment, if he did what he said, going 25 feet that way, and setbacks or anything?
No.
No, okay. You see what I'm saying? If you went
Yeah.
20, you had 25 feet that way, would that then bring up a different issue, variation?
Right. I think it's 6 more feet in front of that staircase.
Yeah.
So it's 11 now.
Right.
And then some college kids walking off the staircase and someone's pulling in there, driving that way.
I think there might be some details lacking as well. I think you can widen the driveway itself. There also has to be some sort of taper back into the drive itself. I don't know that you'd want to come straight down,
Okay.
because I don't know how that impacts the public street or the public street itself, I guess.
Yeah.
That section is essentially, at this point, a very long driveway. It's got one person on the other side using it too, but it's one of those awkward situations that we get into down there. But that was a good point you raised, Noel, about, I'm sure the snow is gonna get pushed right to the end of that stub of the street. You know, when I look at this one, it doesn't seem like there's, maybe we got it. Can you go back to the other one, Paul? So the end of the city, this is the right of way? Is this-
The green
You're
light is
hiding,
right.
hiding what you're pointing at from all of us.
So if we can use our eyeballs, it looks like that green line is coming in about halfway
On the
between.
splitting difference there.
Then if we go forward,
Yeah, I think if you can see that, that's probably denoting, I think that's a private sign, but that's probably the right-of-way line, basically.
Yes,
Sign.
that's,
Yeah, doesn't leave a lot of room to work with there.
Whose property is that, the city's? The green, in between the two green lines?
Yeah, that's the city, that's
That's
right
right
away.
away.
It's a road.
You, in essence, would be creating a parking spot in the right-of-way.
yeah.
Is that legal?
That would not be legal, no. That's why, again, I think there's some more design issues that are going on
Yeah.
that you might want to consider. A more refined layout that might address some of those
Exactly.
concerns.
I think we need to see some more than what we've got.
And maybe even
Maybe
consult
some
with the Department
feedback
of
from
Public Works.
DPW,
Yeah.
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 Is they're gonna have some say in how, whatever happens at the north end of Dan's there. I think there's a lot of ways they can slice and dice it, but, you know, right now, I don't see a way to do it without putting a parking stall or a drive lane like right in front of that egress door.
Yep.
Or that staircase, and we certainly don't want somebody parking there. So you have to have the parking beyond that, which almost means like you're gonna have to thread a drive between that sign and the staircase, and then put a slab over by the pine tree there or something. And I don't know how soon before you get into setback requirements off the bay. You know, there's gonna be some limit there too, right?
Probably not much, I mean,
Okay.
25 feet would be the,
From the dike or something like that?
there's a 50-foot, but you can park within the 50 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're still trying
So-
to understand this.
Right, or would DPW allow an artificial extension of Dan's by the petitioner to put a parking stall further back into his lot, you know, and basically have a driveway coming off of the stubbed north end of Dan's, I don't know, right?
Right.
You know.
And certainly any parking in the public right-of-way is going to be a concern.
Yeah, it's
Any
gonna have to be on
overhang.
the other side of that sign.
Are you prepared to give us more information?
I could go to
think
the Department of Public Works and
I think we need a-
get their input.
We need a
Quite
lot
frankly,
more
this
of
is
a
very-
drawing.
Yeah, well, this is a very novice approach.
And I sense that the board is not prepared to grant a variance at this point. But since we
So-
do have some folks here, I would like to hear what the other folks have to say. If there's commentary.
To put up, we own the property to the right of his.
You're the other user of the driveway, essentially.
No, you're here, right?
Next one.
No,
right to the
next.
22.
Oh, here,
Friendly.
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, that one,
That
got it.
property.
Okay,
And
to the east.
when we built, back in '82, we built to be even with his property, didn't own at the time, and our next door neighbor, so we'd all have the view of the bay. So if he extends that driveway or puts parking behind his building, that will block our view too.
Ah, okay. Good point.
I thought maybe he could, if he had some variance alongside of his, on the side of his property. If he needed it, you know, all these years, he's had 4 stalls and 5 units and never had a problem. As far as parking that we know, we've been there 36 years. So, but my concern
It's
is.
36 years.
Almost 37. But what my problem is blocking our view. I mean, we're paying over $4,000 a year for taxes and to be on the bay, so we got a view. And if they start putting cars behind this building there, on the bay side, it's gonna block some of our view too. That's my concern.
That's a good point. Thank you. Is the city amenable to renting a portion of the end of Dan's Avenue to?
We don't tend to rent property or rent right-of-way. There would have to be some sort of parking arrangement, I guess I would call it, but that's a Public Works issue.
Have you even approached that, sir?
It never entered the discussion, quite frankly.
Well, the problem that everyone up here is having is we won't allow parking in front of an entrance or exit of a building. And that stairway represents the main entrance, perhaps the only entrance to that apartment.
Right. There's a jump porch for exit off the backside, off of the side that is on this gentleman's property.
These are young college kids too. Probably.
Well, they're the only ones that are gonna wanna climb up that stairway. we want to be able to get people in and out of that if they're incapacitated.
Right.
And we don't want to have any cars interfering with such a procedure, especially cars that we may have implicitly approved, so.
Here's the thing too, and I'm looking at the street to the south of this. I mean, there's other options here. I think we need to table this and let the petitioner maybe come up with a more fully fledged plan.
Yeah, I think you've heard our concerns, and the concern about the parking in front of the main entrance to that apartment is one thing. The other thing is that we just don't seem to have been given enough information that we can even position it, what you're proposing, exactly according to where the road is and the width of the driveway that you will end up with, that type of thing.
Though, one other comment though, when I went to the city planner's office, they said as long as you have that abutment, that gives 5 feet and so forth.
Well,
Yeah, it was a question I had for Paul, was like, what's the?
we have some
threshold?
some leeway in how we would interpret that. I mean, obviously, if you had 20 feet between the end of that stairway and any other parking, even if we called that parking in front of it, that would be fine. But I don't think 5 feet is enough. And that's where I'm starting to get nervous about what you proposed.
So what do you consider an appropriate, basically, safety space, if you want to call it that?
In this case, I don't know if there is one. I mean, based on the proximity of where the steps come down and the right of way, there's maybe 5 feet there to begin with, in a very small space, so I don't know if there's enough. It should be unobstructed, I think, would be my position.
Yeah.
Didn't you go through this with, I don't remember, when Zimmer was here, he was proposing an abutment, a planter, something like that.
Zimmer was on his own on that.
Right,
Yeah.
they took it, based on that conversation, we took it back to city council and to staff to talk to the fire and the police people, and they basically said nothing, not even abutments.
Yeah.
Both police and fire had that response.
Yeah.
Is that the main entrance, or is there another entrance into those?
That is the main entry for the fifth unit.
For the fifth
Which is
unit.
closest to the bay.
How do the other units get in? Through the garage door?
No, it's a triplex on the main structure.
So is the main structure to the south?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so they live in the structure to the south?
No, there's
No,
units
there's
there, too.
another unit to the south of that fifth unit.
So there's 2 units above the garages
Correct.
and 3 more units in the other structure.
That is correct.
And it looks like you got it connected by catwalks or something
Okay.
like that.
Yes.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
What are the issues, Paul, with bringing it down to away from the bay towards the road, the driveway? There's not a lot of room there, but.
I'm saying there might be, when you look at this here, I'd be more inclined to think of, receive a plan that talks about something over there.
Yeah.
Even when you look up there, there's still not a lot of room there.
No,
I think Paul's got a good point. That sign is probably about in that spot, and gee,
Right.
there's,
yeah, but I'm saying, there's like a gravel patch on the side of
yeah.
the road where there's some garbage cans in the Google Street View. It looks like maybe a car is parked there on occasion, south of all these garages, but, it might be within the setback, but I might be more inclined to hear about a parking space that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the setback, south of the garages than north of. But again, with what we've got for a sketch here, I can't make a call on it. So unless the petitioner's willing to, to do a little more legwork and come back, and we table it, I'd be inclined to move to deny the request without any further information if we're insisting on, some action tonight.
Exactly. That's exactly where we are, and I think it would be in the applicant's interest to go back and try to
Oh,
I
yes.
think we need to see some alternatives, we need to see some really good diagrams.
And you would basically go by the guidelines of the Department of Public Works, is what you're saying. You want their in
Well,
terms of,
that's up to you. What, we've got an ordinance that we have to try to live with, and we
Right.
grant variances where we believe some variances are in order, but we're not sure that we can do that in this case at this point. So we need more information. We'd like you to explore
Or a
some
more
alternatives.
precise map.
I want to grant it.
Yeah, maybe in front, as Noel
Appreciate
is
that.
saying, maybe off to the side, heck, even, well, you could buy some more property. But you see where we are,
But-
you've got an unfortunate situation, and then that, essentially your front door is right where you want to put the parking.
Right. So, not to beleaguer people, but the best asset for this, from city standpoint, is the Department of Public Works.
Well, I think it starts with a design or some concepts you have to
Right.
develop. Maybe there's a couple plans, and I think starting with Public Works in proximity to the right-of-way, because it might be challenging to add any parking within that area. But certainly stopping in our office and talking to me would be helpful as well from a zoning code perspective. But I think Public Works, you might want to reach out to them first.
That's the starting point.
I think so, with a good design like Noel's.
Paul, if the petitioner was saying, could they look at, given that it's a multifamily here and some of the challenges of the layout and not wanting to, say, park further north on the site, if they came in and proposed, what about a parking stall or two wide off the south end of this property coming off of Dan's, would that be something that we could consider, or that you might consider as an approvable thing, although puts a second driveway off of the street, but.
Right, that's one issue, is parking in the front setback. I mean, there are other options.
Well, but you could park behind the, couldn't they come like here and park here?
Now within the front yard, well,
That might.
Because, the garage is here for the neighbors, right? It seems like that would be maybe not a territory that would be off limits.
if it was a parking spot behind the setback.
Yeah. So maybe something like that, I don't know.
But the second drive would require a variance.
Yeah,
If I could
there'd still be a variance
There'd still be a
regardless.
variance, but it may be one that.
One would be more palatable.
Yeah.
The problem with that is it actually would impede the exit from the fourth unit and the third unit. Because that's.
You
the
could have an
access.
issue and regardless of where you go, so.
Right.
Well,
That's why we wait for your
Yeah,
proposal
we'll,
and take a
We'll
look.
get the city people
we will
involved.
anticipate your good
But
results.
what kind of window do we have here to work with?
We can table it until you're ready to come back, can't we?
Oh, yeah.
Or we could save,
We usually put
a couple of months or something?
We'll either put 30, 60, or 90, and
Days.
How much
I would
do
think
you-
90 days would be fine.
I would hope so. Very good.
Can I just add one thing on?
Yes.
I live on, well, actually, I live on East Shore Drive, but my address is Lakeside Place. It faces the back and it faces Mr. Horak's property. And my only concern is that in the wintertime, the city pushes all the snow from the neighborhood down his street to the back of the house. And I think they do a really nice job because everybody that lives there that's parked can always get out.
Right.
So they push it, all the way back, probably to that little sign that you showed, and even, past the staircase. So, I'm just thinking if there was parking allowed behind, the city would have to really, I don't know if they'd be able to push that snow halfway down the yard so that then the other people can get out. But the snow, in the wintertime, it's really, it's like that all over, but that bank at the end of Dan's Avenue is just enormous. But like I say, they push it far enough away so that the people that live there can get out in the wintertime. So that's the only thing that, I would be, thinking of.
Yeah, that's a good
Snow-
consideration.
For placing snow removal.
As I said, I live next door, and that is my garage out near the road. And the reason I built it out there is because it's a lot easier to shovel a sidewalk than a driveway,
Yeah.
all the way back to the house.
Right.
But somebody's suggestion about maybe putting a couple stalls on the south side of the house. I think you made that suggestion. You know, that to me would probably be the best bet, you know. I don't see where that would block anybody's view there.
Right. Although there's some trees maybe in the way or some other shrubs or something like that, but I
Well-
guess that the petitioner can come back with something that they
Yeah.
think works, and we can
Yep.
entertain it, right?
Yep, at that point,
But like
we'd
Gail-
rather not do the design for you.
like Gail said too, you know, the city trying to, with the snow pushing back there.
That might make it easier there too.
If he's got stalls back there, it's gonna be awful hard, and just the fact that when the snow blows off the bay, he might end up with 3 feet, 4 feet of snow in that driveway.
Mr. Chairman, do you need a motion to
Yes,
table
we
it for
do.
90 days? I move to table this for 90 days.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to table the application by Mr. Horak for his property on Lakeside Place for 90 days. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Thanks.
Thanks, appreciate it.
We will look forward to your return, sir.
Yes, if we come up with a solution.
All right.
That's the challenge.
Yep,
Great, well, thanks.
good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to talk about Paul's draft of the application process.
Well, we can. I have nothing formal to present except that that application's hanging out there. We have some comments from you, Ann. from
Well, we've been
Tom.
putting it off because we didn't have enough or we had too much, so we've got, I think tonight is, you know, as I commented today, and I remember Tommy's commented before, I liked what Tommy proposed, and I think the gist of what the thing you were proposing was you get rid of the term hardship and just go with what's in the three-step test. That's what I got out of what Tommy was saying.
Nice to see you.
I think
Thank
that
you.
makes sense.
Thank you.
I'm fine with it. I like it.
Kind of gets rid of the emphasis on hardship too, which is a catchword that we use and somebody else uses, and we jump right to that. Is that where you were coming from on this, Tom?
It's a straight edge.
Yeah, I think the goal is process. I feel like we need a little bit more process, and with process though, the goal is to simplify and focus.
Right, so what happens now is when someone applies, they get like a packet basically of information. This is to kind of replace some of that, so I've integrated all that together. And then we'll take your comments and we can reformat it or, you know, readjust as necessary. But I think the idea is to get those changes made and bring that back to you as like a package, as if you were applying for a variance, so you can see that, see all the detail.
And then maybe run it for 6 months and see how,
Sure.
see how it works and maybe make some tweaks later or something like
I
that.
think the whole idea of revamping that was to make sure you got the information that you needed. So hopefully that's clear to applicants, but again, I don't want to burden people, you know,
Right.
filling out a,
So
an ACT test or something. It's not, you know.
Can I ask a real honest question? It's okay, and won't hurt my feelings. Did anybody read my notes in context of this? Because I can explain them pretty quickly if you want while we're looking at it. Or you guys know you read it,
Go ahead
know
and
exactly what
explain
it is.
it, yeah.
What's that?
I read them, but you can explain it for me. It'll be helpful.
Yeah, so, Paul, if you want to pull up the thing, I can kind of walk through it, like, the actual packet. I have my notes here, so I can kind of walk through it. So like, let's say you were getting a packet, to me, in reading this, if I was someone who didn't know what we did, like, I feel like he explains who we are, what we do, you know, I get the
What these
overview
things
of who we are and what this process is gonna look like. Step one, cool, okay, that makes me feel comfortable. And then, you know, very personal, this is great, thanks, Paul, good signature. by the way.
It's an introduction.
Then you get into all this stuff. To me, as a second page, I'm already like, what the, right? Like, we want to make this easy for people. So I was saying, why don't we move that to the back end of the packet as more of like a,
Explanatory notes.
yeah, like this is like the terms and conditions. Hey, you've already filled out your application. You've been able to check these boxes. Here's what this process is going to look like. Or you can refer to some stuff as like terms and conditions. But get it out of the way. Otherwise, I'm already skipping this and just putting in what I want.
Right.
So that was my suggestion there, is bring those to the back. And then, because I think Paul did a good job of explaining, summarizing some of this stuff already. Go down, go down. So this is all at the back now. I didn't make any edits to here because I feel like a lot of this is probably necessary. Keep going, keep going.
More of this, all this too.
So this piece, right, is the deep dive into really what we're asking for, right? Here's the three things,
Right.
okay? So go down.
Yeah.
So in this section, I made a lot of edits. So go back up,
You were gonna dump the hardship thing completely.
dump this section out, take it out completely because it's already,
Because
it's double dipped.
right.
Go ahead.
Okay, because the thing is, it's the forcing us to comply that can't create a hardship, right? That's the forcing the petitioner to comply is what's causing the hardship.
Information needed, this is the description of why I want it, or the
Description of what the request
come
is.
out, this goes out, this goes out, so edit, not even replace, like, just gone.
Okay.
But then you have to keep this, but we're gonna put something up in place of this, so down here, this is your three-step test.
This is where you
which
prove the
already, if
case.
you answer these questions, you're dictating to us what the three-step requirement is in the thing. So
Yeah, but
basics-
we can still disagree with the petitioner because there's some creative shovelers out there.
Correct,
Right.
but at least this three-step test talks about the unique property values, it talks about the hardship.
Right.
So if you go through these three things, you've already taken care of those two things that I edited.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, right.
This
right, where-
three-step
yeah.
test,
This
and
asks for it
then-
more clearly than the other section does.
so this would go up, go back down.
So
now.
this explains the hardship in more detail, basically.
Right.
Exactly, so if you answer these three questions, we kind of get what we need, right? So go back this way, sorry.
That way?
So that would go up here,
Uh-huh.
okay, those come out, go back down now. Alternatives, right, which is my sometimes slightly frustrating thing, is we're the ones coming up with the alternatives.
Right.
So, alternatives that you consider that might comply. So that's that.
Right, that guy could have had, I could try and park here, I could try and park there, I could try and park there, and then we go like, okay, yeah.
And here's ones I've done, but here's why I don't want to, or why it doesn't work. Cool.
Right, that one.
Lesser
costs
variance.
$3,000, This one's.
It's double dip, just get rid of it. We can suss that out. I don't need them to list that. So now we've taken, what is it, 3 pages, I think 2 long pages and maybe a page and a half.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I said third and fourth question redundant. Go down, I think that's
Take
it.
those two out, take these two out.
Take
These
alternatives
two
and
outs.
reasons, yeah.
These two alternatives, good.
Yeah.
3-step up,
Those
take the other
above
2
that
out.
section, yeah.
And that's it. And I think there's nothing else after this, right?
Right, but these are staying?
These 2 stay,
These
these
two
2
go.
go. Because they're kind of saying the same thing
Yeah,
again.
in a different
What are
way.
we done here?
That's it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Cleans it up.
Oh, that's really nice.
And it gets rid of the term
Hardship.
hardship.
Yup.
Well, it still has it in it still says, unreasonable or unnecessary hardship, right? Go to the 3 test section, Paul, in the form itself.
Do you want the word hardship in there, I guess?
This is the hardship that we should be
Yeah.
looking at, right here. Does the physical characteristics of your property prevent you from complying with the ordinance? Remember, we look at land, right, not the people.
Yeah, well, and why would not getting it, unreasonably prevent you from using it for the permitted purpose?
I can add hardship, 3-step hardship test, is that?
Sure.
Seems like-
Oh,
seems like-
there?
seems like that word should be in there somewhere.
Well, I think it needs to go back to that, it needs to align in some way.
Go back up to the
So that they can go to that 3-step
construction
test
section.
that's in the terms and conditions section.
Yeah, go up to that again. Go way up to the, do your narrative at the, right,
Oh.
nope, you passed it.
This kind of thing. So unique property limitation, right? This is like and then public interest. So how are you addressing these 3 things?
But
And
these are gone.
These are, and.
Well, this is the terms and conditions.
Yeah,
It
but
susses
this
it
isn't,
out more.
but this isn't quite the same format as you've got the information in the form, right? You've got the protection of public interest, you've got the unique property information, but we've got that other section doesn't necessarily match this unnecessary hardship test. There's unique property characteristics, public interest, and then, is that third one, Paul, is that just kind of a paraphrasing of all of those sub-elements to that one? Is that what you're doing there? So maybe that last bullet should say, how would not getting the variance create an unnecessary hardship instead of unreasonably prevent? Maybe that's,
Yeah.
maybe that's where we put that language in there so that it matches the instructions. Because for me, when I'm looking at the terms and conditions, I like putting it to the back, so it's almost like the cheat sheet for me when I'm filling out the form.
Yeah.
But if I can't map it clearly to some of the instructions, I could get lost, right? And by putting the word unnecessary hardship, I think in that third one, then I know which section I'm looking at in the instructions.
Well, and maybe you refer, like, hey, for this question, refer to page 5 on the document, section A1, and it matches up with that first step. Refer to section thing.
Yeah, well, then I would rotate the list, the order of these to match the instruction order.
Correct. I mean, maybe
But I
that gets, so referencing each question, go here for more of a detailed, explanation. But then we're forcing them to say 3-step test.
Or we number the sections in the form the same as the sections in the instructions, and then you could just say once at the top of the thing, numbered sections of this form, match up to instructions at the back or something like that.
Good. Like, keep it simple.
Yeah.
And then I think if there's a way, or if you feel this is too like on the nose, but again, going back to what we learned in that training, meets the following 3 requirements. So if you don't answer this question, you're out. If you don't answer this question, you're out.
Right.
It has to pass all 3
Right.
in order for us to, well, and we've made exceptions, but that's the kind of the foolproof plan, is that all 3 are yeses.
Well, it puts their argument into the form that
Yeah, that's
we want to
specifically tied
see
to it.
according to the compliance with the ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe even to qualify for the variance, the applicant must demonstrate that their property meets, or that their request meets, all 3 of the following requirements, like something that merits,
A bold or something.
that it makes it that it's all 3. But I think this edits you're suggesting, because when we're removing some redundant sections, we'll make this a shorter form, and putting the instructions at the back, then you've got, I think, your cover letter, introducing them to the concept, then they can start filling out the form, and then they can look at the notes at the back and go, oh, I should punch this point, I should punch that point. And I think that makes it a more useful document. I think that's really well done.
Thank you. In the form, real quick, since we're making this kind of a little bit more succinct, I would think in your letter, adding a little bit like, hey, this could just kind of punch out. The goal is for you to, this is the board, this is who we do, this is what we are. This 3-step test is a huge thing, really kind of explaining how they're going to win.
You want to reinforce that up here?
I don't necessarily know if now that we've agreed that it's a 3-point thing and it's in the thing, so in here somewhere,
I'm gonna have a
it's
seizure.
dancing. Strongly suggest you contact our office, discuss, or something in here that says, or in here, a 3-step question.
You could add it right there in that the property owner must show unnecessary hardship is caused by the ordinance, and then just a parenthetical say, see 3-step test instructions,
Yeah,
And
kind
then-
of tying it all
and then-
together.
And then that's exactly what they're looking at.
Yep.
And I think this will be it. This is a really good.
Definitely
with those
closer, for
changes.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let me revamp it, and I'll email it out as soon as I can.
Sounds good.
Look at it again.
And we'll do a final sign off, and you can start
Thanks, dude.
shoving it down.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's other topics you want to discuss. I mean, we've been kind of chasing our training from February, I think. I don't know if there's other things you want to keep discussing, or, leave it up to you guys if you
Well,
learn
it's
something.
still
you
that
wanna-
administrative permit thing, and we may want to revisit that with whatever
Yeah.
clarifications and qualifications you may want to describe to us.
Yeah, like driveway widenings.
Do you want me to keep, this item on the agenda, just keep rolling? Do you want to take
Yeah.
5-10 minutes after every meeting, if you have time, to
Sure.
talk about ideas and?
Sure.
Well, next time we'll act on the revisions to the final, hopefully the final version of this form. Maybe the next time we talk about the administrative permit stuff, I think we can just keep pushing this stuff forward, right?
Quick thing, just a suggestion again, and I don't know if we want to implement anything, but I think there is, maybe we can create or have Jessica draw something up, done. I think our process, and I've suggested this a couple times, is in terms of how we introduce each case, I think there's a speedier, like a more efficient way, especially, and again, I'm speaking because I'm usually the slowest one here at the table, but if Paul was able to start with, hey, the process is, hey, next item, Paul, please explain, you tell us which property is, you go through the documents, you whittle it down, and then you say, okay, perfect. The applicant, please come forward, present your 3-step test, but they don't come up to the table until you've presented, right? Because it allows the board to demonstrate what our process is. Like, we're here, we're discussing, now you come up, we've heard you, thank you, go back. Anybody else, come forward, go back, close the floor, like the city council votes to even close the floor. Perfect, discussion's done, now we're here. If you go back last meeting, they were over here designing the whole property while we just sat here, which was good. It was a good community thing to do because there was a lot of tension. But if we're thinking a court, I think there's some order of process.
You don't approach the bench without.
Correct, without asking. And so, Don, would that be something if like, let's say
absolutely.
Jessica brought, like she has that laminated for you, if it said, hey, this is the order of operations, and it was dropped for you, or the vice chair, if you're not here, hey, here's the order of operations to run the meeting, and here's the order of operations for each case, would that help you?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something?
It's kind of like a roadmap, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, and does everybody agree with that step?
I'm cool with growing into it.
Yeah. And that could
Noel goes fast. When he's there, he's like, all right, let's go, I'm proving it, but I think there's an order of operations we should always honor.
Yeah, I agree with the order.
that could actually be attached to the back of the packet. This is how you're gonna, this is how the board will proceed.
kinda covers some of
And there's some stuff that's in there, I'll roll that out next time, but there's procedural stuff, what they expect will happen.
Yeah.
I think another thing in there is,
Yeah, I have a concern.
well, we can cross that another time.
The only concern I have with the exact roadmap is that not every case is different. And if you're speaking first, it's almost, like it's somewhat good to let the applicant state the case. Even though sometimes it's hard to understand. If you're the one speaking first, it's almost like the applicant may say, well, am I getting a fair shake? Paul from the city is giving them all the info. You know what I mean? And that now I get to speak, but does it matter?
He's the most objective presenter of information
I
I've
get
ever
it,
met.
Perception.
Perception.
Well, so at the plan commission, I staff that as well, and we give a report and recommendation ahead of that. So
Yeah.
they open up the item, they look to staff, we give a report recommendation, and they open up the floor from there.
I actually like that.
But this is-
I do too. That's the way it used to be
Right.
12 years ago when I came on here.
But this is a different body, and you have different
Yeah.
powers, and
But this
you're more of
board
a court.
did
So-
it that way.
So it's really up, I guess, the chair ultimately, and I suppose the members as a whole, how you want to conduct.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I think that's up to you how you want to operate.
I wouldn't mind that, and I share Greg's concern, but I think they're always going to get their chance to speak.
You just score the quality of their arguments.
Well,
Right?
but Paul is just
It's weak.
setting it up.
This case
Well,
is weak.
Well, it's informative for the board, I guess, I think is the point.
Here's a perfect example tonight, right? That guy had a lot of emotion attached to what was going on with him, and I completely understand everything he was talking about.
The driveway guy and the
The
cul-de-sac.
corner, the cul-de-sac thing,
Oh,
there was
yeah.
so
Oh, yeah.
much context coming out, which is
He was
great
so
for
invested,
him.
Yeah.
I was like, I still haven't heard what the variance is, and again, I want to, as a body for the public, I 100%
He
want
gave too much information.
to be a place where they can feel like the city's listening, and I think that's super important for us, but at the same time, all I'm thinking, instead of listening or empathizing with this guy is,
What is he talking about?
and I'm diving into the sheet going, I still don't understand, because they also write the sheet.
You
with
invited
their
him to
emotion.
join the Board of Appeals.
Right, so you know what I'm saying? So I think,
Yeah, we
I
should
think what
push
you're
that a little
concerned about
harder.
is valid, and I would say if we're using what you just said as an example in terms of the plan commission, what I would eliminate from that to address your concern is no recommendation. Here is the application, here's the
Yeah.
structure, we're not asking for a recommendation yet.
Right.
So keep your opinion in a way, unless it's necessary, because a couple times you've been like, hey, this is,
Well, that's a philosophical issue, I guess.
Right.
And we've been through that in past administrations, I guess. So, we can do that. Staff can do a lot of different things. It depends on what the board's wants for information what they feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I think
So-
that's a good compromise.
Or maybe they were instructed that we tell them, okay, when you come up here, state what you're, state specifically the variance you're asking to deviate from and what from the start. So we're not talking about all this background first.
Yeah, but
like,
see, that's how
you-
Paul can frame that, and then
Yeah.
the person could come up
Right,
and
and then start to talk about their
start to
background.
talk, and if they have any objections to the way he framed it,
Yeah.
fine, but at least then we're
But if
not
I-
going off in all directions.
If I present, it's gonna be just basically the facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
Here's the lot on the property.
Right.
Sometimes you guys are like, oh, here's the property. I'm like, which one are we talking about?
Right, so
Yeah.
orient you and to talk about the
Yeah.
code.
Right,
and-
these are the variances,
Right.
that's the key thing.
And then I think to add, maybe if we agree in order of operations, okay, cool, like here it is, facts, just orientation and facts of what we're talking about. State your case, any objections or approve, like public record,
Yeah.
whatever. Do we want to add in an optional city recommendation question? Does the city have an opinion on this as well? So that the city, right, which then allows everything to happen first before we're biased. Then we could say, okay, cool, we've heard from both sides. Does the city have any comments? Okay, cool. Close the floor, deliberate, move to a motion to approve or deny, next thing.
My
What do you
biggest
guys think about
concern
that?
is that what we're gonna end up doing here with this new form is that we're gonna have people who have weak arguments in one or more of the three elements to the case, and we're gonna spend time trying to help them make their case.
Or designing their property for them. We love to help people, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and I'd like to see a thing where somebody comes in and it's like number 2 is blank, we go like, denied,
Dismissed.
Do we have, I mean, I don't want to be leader at this point, do we have to open the floor for discussion? Do we have to let them present their case? To Noel's point, if 1, 2, 3 is done, we've already looked at it, 2's done, refer back in 30 days.
I think you're bringing on.
I think we gotta hear the
Yeah.
petition, they paid the fee, they gotta be heard,
Yeah.
but we don't have to, we can say, look, you didn't make the argument, you need to make one of these, you need to make all 3 of these arguments and you fail to do so.
Or they want to clarify
Move to
something in the
deny.
application.
All right,
I think
I'm
we
just
have-
trying to get hardcore here, guys, all right?
And maybe they come up and explain why they didn't put it and they have a reason.
I mean, the last gentleman tonight with his typewritten form, I'm like, yay, it's clear to read. And then the hand-drawn
Yeah.
math didn't work. It
Well, it didn't
confused
even
me a
fit
little
the
bit.
lot lines and all.
And it's like, I do think maybe one of the other edits we could make to the packet could be like, here's some online tools that you might want to use for creating drawings if you need to, because there's a couple of free websites where you can put a site plan together pretty quick, right? And
some of
dimension
the
it.
maps can be deceiving too.
Yeah.
You're like, heck, is that 6? Is that 8?
Right.
Are you? Man, I'm looking at it.
We couldn't see if it was a
Yeah.
19 or a
Yeah.
14 today.
Yeah.
You said
It was a 19.
It was 19, yeah.
Bold, by the way, I would bold on that letter, I just strongly encourage that you contact our office to discuss your project, right? Because that's, hey, we can save you a lot of time. If you come talk to us, we'll help you. We're here to help.
Well, sure, what we try to do is have them come and talk to our staff first, like a consultation almost. Not everyone does that or aware of that. So we sometimes get applications out of the blue. If they're fairly complete, we will pass them on. But we like to screen them or vet them through our site plan process. We have inspectors take a look at them. Does it, what does this mean? Does it meet code? Does it not meet code? So we try our best, but we always can't get out in front of some of them.
And then you get other people who are like, get, legalistic and start questioning the interpretation of fundamental words and
Well,
the code or something like that, right?
Was that one?
He's a lawyer.
I know, that wasn't why I refused, but,
Second sentence, okay.
yeah, I suspected that was gonna get to be a problem.
So for next time, I'll work on the application, the edits, we'll get that out, and then we'll work on some sort of blueprint, is that?
Just talk about the
Outline.
Or format
Yeah,
for each
again,
item.
I don't think that we gotta necessarily have that perfected each time. I mean, it might be good to say, let's add this, and then next meeting, let's add that, and evolve into it.
Do you want to type that
Iterative
up? I'll do it at home.
If you have thoughts, you can pass them on, that'd be
I
great.
mean, I could do it when I get home. Here it is, give me your thoughts, and I'll email it to everybody. If you guys, I'll just email it out and say, hey, here's the order of operations, first draft, look at it so we can come in next month and not wait, but we actually can maybe see it and go,
Sounds good.
Thumbs up.
And I can be prepared just to give a 2-3 minute introduction, but I'll leave it up to the chair if you want that.
I would really like,
Good.
Yeah.
So he's punting back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it would be fair too to say, even at the top of every meeting, folks, thanks for coming tonight. Some of you are petitioners, some of you might be here for or against something that's being considered tonight. Here's how this meeting's gonna go. We're gonna get each item on the agenda. We're gonna hear from staff a little bit about it. We're gonna go through some deliberations. You will be given an opportunity to speak, but we may limit your speaking as well, once we feel we've got enough information to make
There is a
decision.
5-minute rule the plan commission uses as well. I mean, that usually
Oh,
isn't a
really?
problem here, but there's sometimes grandstanding at the plan commission, so.
oh, there's grandstanding here too.
Well, sometimes these people.
Wait, that's-
Or on this end of the table.
I was gonna say, that's 2-minute clock on Tommy.
If you get a contentious one, there's sometimes people talking over each other, and you have
Yeah.
to, you do a good job of.
Yeah.
You gotta get
But
them out
sometimes
here.
people talk when they're not, they're up, their turn, they're
Right.
conversing, that's distracting times.
Well, I think we're making great
Yeah.
strides
Yep.
as a group
Good.
here.
Yeah.
And I think that revised formal, the draft of it even, but I think once we finalize that, it really brings us into alignment with that training that you set up for us, Paul, so I think it's great.
Motion to adjourn.
So second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, done.